Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Heath Gascoigne. I am the host of the Business Transformation Podcast. This is the show for business transformators who are part business strategists, part business designers, part collaborators, and part negotiators who moved from just design includes oversight of implementation and transformation. This includes stakeholder management or coordination and negotiation. If you have worked in strategy development and implementation, and you work to ensure that the strategy is aligned to the business design and technology, then you're probably a business transformator. This is the show where we speak to industry experts and professionals to share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you start, turn around, and grow your business transformation. And this episode is exactly what we have. We are speaking to Tony Benedict, President of the ABPM International, Association of Business Process Management Professionals International, among many other titles and hats that Tony wears. Tony is a C-level operating executive who has led step change results in manufacturing-based companies in industries ranging from pharmaceuticals, semiconductors to healthcare. He's acknowledged for his exceptional ability to apply strategic principles and quickly grasp entirely new industries. He has guided global Fortune 500 companies, for 50 companies rather, from GlaxoSmithKline to Intel. He's presently the partner of Omnicom Partners LLC, the interim CXO management and strategy operations advisory firm, and a member of the National Association of Corporate Directors as a governance fellow. Tony has served on the board of directors for the ABPMNP since 2003. He has held numerous board positions over the last 17 years, including VP Relationships, VP Marketing, Operations, Finance, and served as the president of APMP since 2009. He was part of the original education team to develop the 9 knowledge areas of the BPM CBOK version 1 since its inception and up into and including version 4. Not only is Tony qualified, he also holds his MBA in Finance and Operations at the University of Pittsburgh, Bachelor of Science, Psychobiology, certified in Planning and Inventory Management by the Association of Supply Chain Management, ASCM, certified business process leader by the Association of Business Process Management Professionals, and certified business process professional by the Association of Business Process Management Professionals. Tony, it is an honor and a privilege to have you on the show. Thank you for your time. Now, let's set a little agenda to keep us on track. As with that experience and background that you have, we could literally talk for hours and I wouldn't let you stop. This night is will probably go down as the masterclass in the business process management. So to set us off on the right foot, see if we can stick to a rough agenda. We'll see if we can cover off 3 types of transformation, because I'm sure you've seen them all. The elements that you see as critical in integrating the organization and why they're important, and your method for successful that you've used to successfully lead those transformations. So before we start there, Tony, at the very first bit is you've got this amazing background and experience, but where did it all start?
Oh, I wasn't expecting you to ask that. Thanks for having me, Heath.
Pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it all started back when I was working at Intel back in 1997. And I was there about 2 years and basically got involved in the operational side of the business, factory operations, assembly test operations, which is all process, right? You take a silicon chip, you put it on what's called a substrate, you assemble it, you fuse it, you package it, and then you ship it to, well, it goes to distribution center, and then you ship it to a customer. And we were actually implementing SAP ERP, and we had to re-engineer all of our processes because they were horrible.
Yep.
And so at Intel, they have a concept called copy exactly. Which basically you and I in the BPM world think of it as standardization, right? So copy exactly is basically every factory process is the same identical process across all the factories. If you have 5 factories, 10, 25 factories, you literally will do the same process at all of them. And so that really kind of got me really interested in business process re-engineering, and then business process management as an acronym and as a concept was just starting out back then.
Yep.
So a lot of books, BPM, the Third Wave from Peter Finger, as well as some of the conferences that were put on by Gartner, Forrester, et cetera. And eventually I was put in a position where I had to really manage a group of BPM professionals and was looking to train my folks as well as myself on how to do all this stuff, right? So I went to a Gartner conference. I met then the president of ABPMP and said, hey, you guys have a body of knowledge, or do you have any kind of training? I mean, I just took over a group and I want to get my people spun up. He said, no, but why don't you join our organization and we'll put a body of knowledge together. That was 2003.
Wow. Yeah.
So 6 years later, we launched version 1. We put it out for feedback, and all that feedback was incorporated into version 2. And we published, we developed the first certification, which is CBPP. And the rest is history. We're at version 4 now. We have 2, soon to be 3 certifications. I've been part of the whole process from the very beginning, and co-author of all the bodies of knowledge. It's not just me, there's a minimum of at least 20 people. And then we went global in 2009, and we brought in all of Europe. We brought in South America. And so you can imagine how long it takes to collaborate with that many people, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because everybody has an opinion.
Yes.
And so getting people to focus on common practices is painful, but once you do it, you end up with a body of knowledge. It says, hey, 70% of the time, if you do this, you will be successful. And so that's what the body of knowledge is. I hate the concept best practices.
Yep.
They're common practices that have been proven to be successful 70% or more of the time. So if it hasn't proven to be successful at least 70%, it's not in the body of knowledge.
Okay.
So you get a lot of people that say, hey, well, I do this and I'm successful. Well, that's just you, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so it's like, it's like a science experiment, right? If somebody else could use your methodology and be successful, now we're talking about something, right?
Yeah, got the same result. Yep.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so you are literally the pioneer. There's the co-author from the first version 1 to currently, and still involved in it. And
our original president was part of that, Brett Champlin. He actually passed away. Gosh, I'm embarrassed, but last year. And then Peter Finger passed away this year. So some of the people that were my mentors and influencers passed away, but they leave a legacy. Right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nice work. Okay, so you saw through your own experience doing or looking at process improvement, and then you saw, wait a minute, there's a bit of a science to this. There's a bit of maybe a structure or a defined process. And you thought, wait a minute. And then it made you inquisitive and look for is there an industry adopted process, and that's how you approach the then.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and as you can imagine, you learn more by doing.
Oh,
right.
You speak this is
so. you know, you could read as many books as you want and say, well, that makes sense, and you know, that sounds about right. But until you do it, you can't really prove it, right? So the more you do what I would call full business transformation, the better you will become at it, right?
Yes.
And so I've done it enough to know what works and what doesn't. I can't sit here and tell you that every company that runs into problems will have the same problem. There's common themes.
Yep.
So when you go into a situation, you have to assess, you know, what are they really doing wrong here besides everything, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you can't go in and make a list of 150 things they're doing wrong. You have to say, what are you really trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And based on what you're trying to accomplish, what is it you're doing? And do you have the right skill sets, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yep.
So learning by doing, I'm still learning by doing, even though I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Like, yeah, the day you die is the day you stop learning.
That's true. I truly believe that.
Yeah, yeah. That's what my father did and still does, drumming to me. But it's so true. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you talked about full transformation, so might as well talk about the definition of transformation or business transformation, because there is I think it's like agile, and agile means different things to different people, and then because it means different thing, they apply it in a different way, or they say, like, agile is, and currently the client I'm talking to or working with right now, they'll say some part of the business will say agile is an excuse not to do certain things, and those things are documentation. And they'll say, but now it gives us an excuse to do other things, and that is cutting out steps. So yeah. So in business transformation, and you've got different degrees or definitions of different types of transformation.
Sure. So back in 2016, Harvard Business Review, there was a great article in there that identified 3 types of transformation. And so that's the definition we use in the body of knowledge. And the 3 types are, there's an operational transformation, there's what's called an operational model transformation, and there's a strategic type. And so I'll give you examples of all 3. So an operational transformation, it's basically what you're doing today, but you're going to try to do it better, faster, cheaper, you know, et cetera. And many companies that say they're doing digital transformation are really trying to digitize what they do today without any improvement. So you tend to see a high failure rate, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because if you try to automate something that's performing poorly, it's going to just do it faster.
Yes. Yes. We speak on the same terms there. Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
So then there's the operational model. And, you know, a great way to explain that is if you look at Netflix. When Netflix first came out, they were competing with Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster had stores. You went into the store.
Yep.
You picked out a video, you took it home, and then you brought it back within 3 days. Netflix did it by mail, right? You order online, they mail it to you, you watch it, get it back in 3 days, you don't get charged a late fee. Well, what did they do? Well, they changed their whole operational model, and now they eliminated DVD. Well, they still do mail order, but it's probably less than 20% of their business. You literally order the movie online and they stream it to whatever device you want. So the carrying inventory, warehousing, distribution costs, you know, et cetera. So now it's really about, uptime on their data center and bandwidth for you, right? So that's it. A complete operational model transformation from physical distribution of disks to streaming over, fiber optic lines, right?
Yeah, to virtual, from a physical to a virtual model.
Exactly. And then there's the strategic, where you literally change the essence of your organization. A great example there is Amazon. You know, they went from being an online retail, well, they went from an online bookseller to an online retail store like Walmart, right? To now they have this whole other business where they have Amazon Web Services. So they're literally a cloud computing company, right? And they literally rent out their data center to companies like, you know, our federal government is one of their biggest customers. That was a completely new business, and they changed the whole idea of what Amazon really is, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that was very strategic. Was technology, well, let me go back. If you look at all three types, technology is used as an enabler.
Enabler, absolutely. Yep.
But it is not the reason why you're doing the transformation, right? You have to actually say, what are we going to do here, right? And so we use those three definitions. And then when you say digital transformation, it's how you apply various technologies. There's loads of technologies out there. It's how you apply it to each type of business transformation, the operational model, and the strategic. And so, and you could see that there could be a failure rate for any one of those types, right? You could fail at the operational transformation. You could try to transform your operational model and completely fail, right? And then you could try to start a whole new business like Amazon did and completely fail, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's really focusing on what, and you know, I bring in what I call the 10 elements of integrating the enterprise, right?
Great.
So you have to say, what are those elements? Well, and these are actually in the order in which I approach it and what is recommended or what will be recommended for the highest level certification, which is the Certified Business Process Leader. Number one is strategy. What is your strategy? Are you competitive, right? We won't get into a whole treatise on strategy, but you kind of know what it is. There's a whole analysis that you do. Then you have to go to customer experience and say, what does that look like? Is there one customer journey? Are there many customer journeys? Are you a product company? Are you a service company? Or are you both? What does that look like for the customer experience? And then you look at number 3, which is business performance. How are we performing in the eyes of the customer? Is our performance, right? Is our performance meeting customer expectations? That's one dimension. The other dimension is, are we doing it better than all of our competitors in that space? So is the customer happy? And are we doing it so our competitors can't keep up with us, right? So that's business performance. And then number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is organizational structure. And number 5 is human capital. So when you look at those two, those are the people side, right? So once you figure out strategy and customer experience and performance, now you have to focus on people. So the organizational structure is roles, responsibilities. Do you have the right incentives in place to incentivize the right behaviors to perform? And then the human capital is, do we have the right competencies, skills? Do we have enough capacity, right? Do we have enough people? And back to the behaviors, are we incentivizing the right behaviors? And then number 6 and number 7 are like two heads of the same, it's like heads and tails of the same coin.
Yep.
It's business process and it's data or information, right? So what processes are really driving the performance to the customer, and what information do we need to gain customer insight to satisfy that customer? And then 8 and 9 is really, you could call it your technology, but it's also your supporting infrastructure, right? A data center is a facility, right? First, and then what's in it is equipment, and how many you have are locations. And then the enabling technologies are your software, development capabilities, your software applications, your data warehouses, you know, et cetera. It's all the components that go into that data center. And number 10 is your policy and rules, right? Regulations. Are you constrained by the government? Do you have your own policies that drive conformance and compliance to regulations? And then there's your business rules, right? If you're bringing on a new customer, do you do a credit check, right? As an example. So strategy, customer experience, business performance, organizational structure, human capital, business process, information, supporting infrastructure, enabling technologies, policies, and rules. That's the order in which you should approach transformation. There's one important thing I will say about process and information. I think it's very important. One is that take two, and we call them value streams. So there's a couple of schools of thought out there that says, well, business process is workflow and business architecture is capabilities and it's higher level and blah, 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 right?
Yep.
We don't view it that way. Business architecture and business process are the same. It's a question of the level of detail.
Yes.
Business architecture is a higher level of detail, a value stream. For example, order to cash, right? Or order fulfillment. You break it down into, you take an order and when do you get paid, right? Procure to pay or requisition to payment. You need to buy something from a supplier, you requisition, they go through the whole process with you to deliver the product, they invoice you, then you pay them. Those are major cross-functional processes that drive value. Order to cash drives customer satisfaction, order fulfillment, and revenue. And then procure to pay is the expense side. So order to cash brings money in, procure to pay sends money out.
Yep.
So those are the two things anybody, especially private equity people or your chief financial officer and even your CEO, where's the money coming in and where's the money going out? And are we making money, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at the full cross-functional nature of those two processes, true transformation looks at those major cross-functional processes.
Yeah.
Not just the little workflow of, hey, you know, the supplier sent us an invoice and one of the line items on the PO was wrong. Let's fix it. That's not transformation.
Yeah.
Right? That's continuous improvement. We're going to fix something within that major cross-functional process. So
that's a good point you make there about the difference, and continuous improvement. I think maybe a lot of clients, they think they're doing transformation or they want to do transformation, but they end up doing a continuous improvement of what they currently got.
Right. So think of the first two types of transformation, the operational which is, hey, here's what we're doing, but are we really doing it well? Well, don't know. We need to improve it. Or the operational model, take Netflix, right? So the operational model to take an order, ship a DVD, track it, let the customer watch the movie, and then have them mail it back. That major cross-functional process is done a certain way in the physical world, but Netflix had to go and literally redesign what that would look like in a virtual world, because they're not shipping anything.
That's it.
Right? They're going to bill you for streaming a movie that you chose.
Yep.
So that whole cross-functional process is very different in a streaming model than it is in a physical ship to DVD model.
Oh yeah.
And then on the strategic side with Amazon, they had to completely design from scratch what Amazon Web Services is going to look like from the perspective of a customer, right? Hey, we can't afford to build our own data center, but we need a data center for what we do. Hey, Amazon, how can you help us? So they literally designed that from the beginning.
Yep.
And I was talking to a friend of mine a couple days ago, and I know it's expensive, but he told me to build a data center today, it's about $750 million. Yeah. So how many people can afford to do that?
Not
Or
that many.
how many companies, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're probably doing about 5 billion a year in revenue, you can't afford it, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So the idea of data center as a service was very innovative and very strategic for Amazon. So that kind of ties your 10 elements together with the types of transformation, because if you really think about it, and let's take one example that's going on right now in the world, right?
Yep.
So if you're a car manufacturer, if you're a cell phone manufacturer, if you're a computer manufacturer, and you need semiconductor chips, guess what? There's a shortage, right? Across the board. And I don't care if you're Samsung or Intel or Apple or whomever.
Yep.
You have a hard problem getting chips, right? So take the 10 elements. Let's just talk through it a little bit here. The first thing is there's a capacity problem. You need to build more factories in order to make more chips.
Yep. To manage the demand. Yep.
So that's supporting infrastructure. That's literally facilities and locations, right? And equipment, capital equipment that actually makes the chip. Okay, so you're going to build more factories. Guess what? You need to hire more people that know how to operate a factory.
Yep.
That's human capital. That's organizational structure. The other thing is you need to know if you're going to do the Intel way, which is copy exactly where every factory will have the same exact processes, or every factory is going to be different. Again, it depends on who you are, right? I could tell you TSMC liked what Intel did, and they kind of do the same thing, right? So there's a business process in the data, and you know where you put that factory is going to be based on tax incentives, government regulations, et cetera. So there's policies and rules.
Policies and rules.
And then, right. So then, and then obviously you have your data center. You're going to be running ERP systems, your shop floor control, production systems, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So you look at all that.
Yep.
All of that has to be integrated in order to build more capacity to make more chips to satisfy customer demand for iPhones, for cars, for everything that makes a chip. computers, right? So Dell and HP are in the same kind of situation as IBM, Apple, General Motors, Toyota, right? They don't
Yep.
have chips. So you
Be
have to
good to
bring
be.
all that. You have to bring all that together, right? That's a full building a whole new set of factory capacity is a major transformation. Now, if you've done it before, you have a proven playbook,
Yep.
right? And a framework to do it. And so that's a life cycle framework, right? When we build a new factory, these are all the things we need to do,
Mm-hmm.
to strategically plan for it, to design it, to
Yep.
build it, to test it, to implement it, and then run it, right?
Yep.
And so that's a life cycle framework, and we have a BPM life cycle framework as well that takes all 10 elements and aligns them with a major focus on strategic alignment and architecting or designing for change, right?
You speaking my language there.
Yeah,
Architecting
yeah.
for change. That is it. Architecting for change. What a great quote that one is. Architecting for change. So tell me, when you go to these for the 10 elements and you go see a client for the first time and they're saying, well, how do you start those conversations with them? And they go, we want to change, or it's inefficient what we do today. We're losing market. We want to go into a new sector, new industry, or to make some new products. We see our competitors doing this. And how do you start that conversation? Was this between you and I, we understand this language, but to
Right.
the client, this is all foreign to them. And probably hearing that from, they might be thinking it's either a wolf in sheep's clothing, that this thing sounds like it's very complicated and it's going to take forever and ever and ever, and we may not even get what we want.
Right. So again, 30 years experience, learning by doing, right?
Yeah.
At first thing is, as human beings, we're resistant to change, right? We love what we know we can do. We're afraid to try something new. Most people are, right?
Yeah.
Human behavior.
Adverse to change. Yep.
So I'm surprised at, and this is not isolated to company size either. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised how many companies don't do strategic plans. So if you don't have a strategic plan, it's like, hey, we're going to go on vacation and you don't have a map. Mm. So if you don't have a map, then it doesn't matter where you go, does it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's what that strategic plan is. And so that's the first thing I kind of ask for. And surprisingly, a lot of CEOs will say, well, I've been in this industry for 30 years and blah, 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 and I don't need a strategic plan. Well, okay, then what are your objectives for the year?
Yep.
And maybe that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
And so if you focus on what are the objectives for the year, that can get them focused.
Okay. And bring them down to reality.
Yeah, and it has to be more than just financial, right? You can't say, well, we're just trying to increase revenue 20%. Come on, it's more than that, right? So there's a whole exercise you have to do at an executive level, because they need to understand that, hey, maybe you're missing something. And you have to do it in a way where you're not telling them that they're stupid, right?
Yes.
You're just, hey, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Did you document it? Is everybody in your executive team, are they aligned to those objectives?
Yeah.
Right? Because if your COO's out there doing something completely different and driving a different objective and is not communicating that back, that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So getting alignment, strategic alignment, is so important. And again, it's across all 10 elements, right?
Yep.
So you can't just say, hey, it's all about performance, business performance. Well, how are you defining business performance?
It means different, like agile, different things to different people.
Right, right. So if you're in operations, that performance might be different than somebody in marketing.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Versus somebody in HR, versus somebody, in the IT department. So what does that alignment look like? And so if you're a fan of Peter Drucker, he used
yes. Yep.
He used to do management by objectives. So you should be able to cascade down from strategy to operations to execution. And everybody's performance indicators should align to the strategy.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the most common problems, which is misalignment between those levels: strategy, operations, execution.
Yep.
And whether you have a strategic plan or not, if you're not doing that alignment, that's what I look for, right? Because that tells me all 10 elements are out of whack, right? So if I could get alignment, then I can design or architect the change to get all 10 elements together and integrate that enterprise. And then I have a plan to move the organization forward. So that's kind of, it sounds really easy, but it's not.
Well, that is, I think that's the thing. It's like it's like I trying to explain the process, some of the process I have, and it's like the process is simple, but the execution isn't. So you mentioned when you talk about the strategy being aligned and you're talking to the C level, the executive level, I'm assuming that you put a little weight on having senior leaders buy into this whole thing.
Yeah, so there's a series of workshops that you could do to really build out what I would call the alignment to strategy and business performance, right? So do you have all the right measurements in place for the 10 elements? In other words, you may have, and this is true across the board, is a lot of the performance metrics tend to be financial in nature, and that's fine. But if you're in HR, what does that mean? Right? If you're the factory manager, what does that mean?
Yep.
Right? So you really have to explain to them that if you don't have enough people with the right skills and competencies for, let's say, using newer technologies, right, to enable your, let's call it business transformation, digital transformation, you've got to go either hire consultants or, better yet, hire people with the skill sets and train everybody else, right? Well, you could put a metric to that. And HR could really march to that metric because they could say, hey, my goal is to get people trained in the next 2 months so that these people are ready to hit the ground running. And that's going to align to the overall strategy of what we're trying to do here, right? So that's how the other elements like organizational structure, human capital come into play. And are you organized for success, right? Where does customer service sit? Does it sit in the sales department or does it sit in supply chain and operations? Where does it sit? And is it the right place? Right? Good question. And I can tell you again, it's a mixed bag, right? Salespeople care about what? Sales. They don't want to take care of customer problems.
Not their problem.
So if customer service is in sales, that could be a problem, right? If it's in supply chain operations, hey, it might be a better place because they're used to fixing problems every single day because they run the operation, they keep the factories running, they keep the warehouses running, you know, et cetera,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So again, it's a mixed bag. I've seen it work both ways. There's different ways to do it, but you kind of get the idea here of alignment,
Oh,
work
yes.
structure. You know, are people incentivized to behave in a way? Do they have the skill sets? And so and by the way, I'll send you a slide deck. You could post it for people to download from your
Very good.
podcast. But
Lovely. Thank you.
There's 5 orders of change, right? There's the process, there's the product, there's the purpose, there's people, there's the place, and there's the time period, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when all of those 6 elements of change are involved, there's a high risk for failure, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you can imagine when Amazon decided to be a data center company, right?
How many major changes is that? Yeah.
That was all 6 elements, man. There was process, there was product, there was purpose, there's people, there was place, and there was time period, right? I think when you look at what Netflix did with streaming, right? Probably, you know, a 3rd or 4th order change, right? You had maybe 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6 of those elements.
Yep.
That had to change, right? And again, it's you're really an orchestra conductor, trying to figure out how to get every one of those elements to play the same sheet music at the right time.
Yep.
And then, you know, again, I go back to the 10 elements of integrating the enterprise. It's focusing on that plus all the elements of change, right?
So would you say then the key is for that alignment is what is the key? Is it the true north or the vision that gets them all on the same page and they go, this is where we want to focus, this is where we're going, and then the strategy is the implementation of that vision?
So again, I think you could say it a couple of different ways, right? I'll stick with the 10 elements, and strategy is the vision, is the why. Why are we here?
Yes.
Strategy is where are we going, right? And beyond that, the customer experience is part of that. Where are we taking the customer?
Yep.
And then when you get to the remaining elements, you're really organizing and aligning all those elements for operational execution. Yes. And so it's again not easy to do. It's easy to say, but not easy to do.
Yeah.
So having a framework to get all those 10 elements aligned, and then bringing the change management into it. And again, again, I hate the word best practice, but the common practice that leads to high rates of success is to have your own people trained and engaged in facilitating the change instead of bringing consultants in, right?
Yeah, you and I, we're singing from the same hymn sheet there. I am on the same opinion. It definitely, that's going to embed the change, right? Because it's their, yeah.
Well, they have a stake in it, and guess what? If you do the right incentive program and everybody gets a bonus for being successful, hey, that program's going to be successful, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. You're just paying consultants by the hour, right?
Yeah.
They have no skin in the game if you're successful or not.
Yeah. No, that's a good point there. That skin in the game thing is when the business has no skin in the game. I've seen big meetings with senior level people in there, and the consultants are coming and they're saying a lot of impressive things, and the business is going, I'm not sure what they're saying, but if we just nod our heads and approve this, they'll go away soon, and
Right.
we can get on with our own job. And then, the project runs for 1 or 2 years, and then they deliver, and then the business go, wasn't exactly what we wanted. And so they find a workaround, and then they don't get the full value of the transformation, and they're deemed
Right.
a failure because they had no skin in the game.
Right. And somewhere along the line, they lost track of the performance, right? What are we really trying to improve from an objective point of view, right?
Yeah.
Profitability, revenue, or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They lose track of those objectives, right? Because they didn't incentivize for them.
Yeah.
And
drive the right behavior.
the consultant's just trying to teach them how to do change management without any, foresight into, well, what are you trying to do here? What are your objectives? They never ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've yet to see a change management consultant ask about what the corporate objectives are. I've yet to see, not to say it could never happen, but they're really focused on their methodology.
Yes. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
which is fine, right? That's what you're sort of paying them for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But teach my people how to do it, and then I'll incentivize our people to
embed and embody it.
Embed in the organizations and get it done right, because they're incentivized to make it work.
Yes. So you talked about many. You said it quickly or just before about cross-functional.
Yeah.
And I think particularly around business process. I think there's you've got if we're talking architecture or process architecture, a level 4 process, and you've got if you put in swim lanes, and you've got the interaction between different stakeholders or different groups, but it is really that interaction between one division or handover across, if it's the user journey.
Right.
What sort of importance do you put on that cross-functional element of the transformation?
All of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a great book out there called Improving Performance, Managing the White Space in Organizations. And it was written by Gary Rumler and Alan Braish. So Gary trained me. I brought him into Intel.
Is that right?
Yeah. He's a PhD in industrial engineering. He actually taught Motorola about Six Sigma, and that's how Six Sigma took off, right? However, the point he makes is business is a system, and it's a human performance system, and process is how people get their work done, right?
Yep.
So people make companies, process is the work they do.
Yep.
Technology doesn't make a company, right? Meaning buy it and implement it, right? It's the people part of it.
Yep.
Which is why that is higher up in the
integrations.
The 10 elements of integrating the enterprise is you got to get the people part right. You don't get the people part right, I guarantee you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because people always revert back to their old habits.
Yes, because they're creatures of habit.
So explaining a value stream, which is again, varying opinions, a level 1 or a level 2, in terms of detail, right?
Yep.
Order to cash, right? It crosses over sales, it crosses over marketing, it crosses over operations, it crosses over manufacturing, it crosses over customer service. Those departments are resource management departments. They're not process departments, right? Even though they sort of have names, marketing as a process, right?
Yep.
But order to cash is that cross-functional that cuts across all those departments. And that's a big part of the education that needs to be explained to people, so that when you look at performance improvement, you're improving the entire order to cash process, not
end
just
to end. Yeah.
not just sales, the sales department's piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Because, well, and you probably heard of Eli Goldratt, you know, the goal.
The book, The Goal, is it?
Yeah, yeah. And he talked about suboptimums, right? If you go and optimize what the salespeople do, you're sub-optimizing the entire order to cash process.
Not the whole
So
process.
you really have to look at the entire order to cash.
Yep.
And the performance of it to really say we're doing a transformation here, whether it's operational or it's an operational model change or whatever, or you're designing a brand new order to cash process like the strategic type. You got to do the whole thing. You don't do one piece and then another piece and then another piece. You do the whole thing.
Yep.
And that's where I think, and I hate to say this, and I'm not criticizing my fellow BPM professionals out there, but there's a tendency to focus on one or two pieces,
yep,
and not the full cross-functional nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the other things I'll mention, and this is important, there's a lot of really good BPMS software programs out there, right? They do everything. They'll model, they'll simulate, they'll do process mining, they'll do case management, they'll do task mining, they'll do robotic process automation, whatever, right? A lot of what the software companies do is they train people to be proficient in their software.
Yeah, in the software.
Without being proficient as a BPM professional.
Yep, in the practice and discipline.
Right.
Yep.
So that's why when you look at our body of knowledge for BPM, there's 9 knowledge areas. Technology is just one.
Yes.
Governance and enterprise process management are 2 that everybody forgets, right? So it's important to really understand that when you do the cross-functional process, you have to govern it. Somebody has to own it and monitor the performance of it. And when it's not performing, they need to really have a call to action to do something about it, especially if you're losing customers or your customer metrics are starting to, go south on you.
Yep.
Or your competitors are starting to steal market share.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Right. So that governance piece is important, and the enterprise process management is managing the entire cross-functional performance of that process. And I always use order to cash because it touches the customer, right?
Yep.
But
the whole end-to-end journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if you don't have good suppliers, and I don't care if you have your own factories and you make your own products or you outsource it to somebody else, right? Yep. You're still making a product. And in either way, you have to manage suppliers to a performance level in order to meet the customer performance level, right?
Yep.
So in a way, order to cash and procure to pay are tied together. It's an even longer, right, integrated process. So anyway.
Okay, so
I hope I clarified the cross-functional.
I see the cross-functional one is, and you touched on the part about the HR and about their role, which I've recently done a transformation program for the UK government and HR, and their vision was to be the strategic people partner to help the business continuously improve. That was their future vision. Their current vision was really a transactional support model or role in the organization, and that was maybe what you would say is a strategic transformation. They were fundamentally changing from what they saw themselves as being a support, then really being an enabler for the business to continuously improve. And so they had a lot of self-reflection about understanding what they did. And I think by the turning point that got everyone on board was that one thing you talked about, the vision, and how can you measure success? And success for them as a division was fundamentally different to what it meant for the rest of the business.
Yeah.
And so starting that conversation was interesting. And it needed to get that strategic, what you talk about, the strategic buy-in, to get them, and I agree, and I do a similar thing about you got to go softly with the language that you use with you don't want to tell them off this.
Sure.
Yeah. It's how do you approach that?
Well, I'll tell you, there's HR should be a strategic function. I'll give you two perspectives. I worked in healthcare off and on for a lot of years, and when you get into the hospital environment, there's what's called patient engagement and there's employee engagement. Well, if you want to improve patient engagement, you have to improve employee engagement. If employees are conscientious and they're really happy doing their job and they engage with patients, then patients are engaged and patients will be happy, right?
Cause and effect.
Because you don't go to a hospital when you feel great, right? You go there because you feel terrible, or you need a knee replaced, or you have back pain and they need to take a disc out or whatever, right? So you kind of go in miserable and you might come out feeling a little better, but you're not feeling 100% better, right? Until you heal.
Yes.
So the whole experience of being in a hospital is based on employees. So why do I bring up employee engagement? Well, who really owns it? Well, in healthcare, it should be HR, right? But in healthcare, especially not-for-profit healthcare, there's usually accountability problems. And so you'll see they'll appoint somebody like a chief patient officer or something like that, right? And sometimes it's a doctor and sometimes it's a nurse, and they don't know how to do it either, right? So bottom line is you don't really have the employee engagement to get the patient engagement. Healthcare, that's a fundamental problem. The reason why I bring it up is there's a great book, and life of me, I can't remember the name of it, but the person who wrote it is Patty McCord, McCord, Patty McCord. She was chief people officer for guess who? Netflix.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's got a great book out there. And there's a couple of great TED Talks from her on YouTube that you can check out. But
Patty McCord. Okay.
You really check out what she's saying about employee engagement, because that's how Netflix went. Well, that's how Netflix started out, right? They didn't have retail locations. They were competing with Blockbuster without retail locations, right?
Yeah, and Blockbuster had a lot of outlets.
Right, and then they went from mailing DVDs to streaming, right?
Yep.
So she literally was the chief people officer and figured out how to engage employees and build a culture to be more innovative, to do those kinds of transformations. So she's a phenomenal speaker. Her book is awesome. I know I have it. It's called Powerful. I have the book in my office here.
Powerful.
And that's what she talks about, right? So really taking HR and making them a strategic department is, again, easy to say, hard to do. Most HR departments, what do? They write job descriptions, they post them on the internet. They ask people how much money they make trying to recruit people, and they never recruit, talented people. They always recruit people that are willing to accept the money they're willing to pay. Right?
And it's,
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm kind of hammering on HR a little bit here, but you understand
Yes.
there's a strategic nature for HR and there's sort of the transactional nature.
Yeah.
And going from transactional to strategic, again, I would suggest Patty McCord's book because
Okay.
she's done it, right? She's
In a
done
big
it.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're a big fan then of the people element and transformation projects and programs.
100%, 100%. Where there's been huge successes, there's been a overarching focus on people, and where there's been huge failures, there's been less of a focus on people. More on technology, less on people, and I think we all kind of know how that goes, right?
Yeah.
It's not like taking well, it used to be you buy a CD with software, you put it in your computer and install it.
Yep.
Now you download it and install it. It's not that simple, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's training, there's education, there's adoption. There's a new process people need to learn. The software is only a part of that. It's not 100% of that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So for our guests, putting that in context, because you've involved in some pretty big projects, but also large, which would be M&As, mergers and acquisitions of large companies and large programs of work. So that you would have seen there of two cultures even coming together. And
very much so.
And in order for that to be successful, then you've got to play to the people part.
Yeah, I've been through enough mergers and acquisitions with companies that are, say, 500 million in revenue, all the way up to in the billions, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion. Market caps, 20 billion. And what's common is it's always us versus them. Who took over who?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if we bought you, it's us and
We're
you're them because we
Yeah.
bought you, right?
Yeah.
That's the cultural thing. And then think about it again. We do it this way, you do it that way.
Yeah.
So you have two different processes for everything: order to cash, procure to pay, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And then you have, think about your technology environments. We use SAP, you guys use Oracle. But we don't need two ERP systems.
Yes.
Or if you're in healthcare, right? Electronic health record, we have Epic and you have McKesson, or we have Cerner and you have Epic. Which one is it?
Yeah.
You can't, doing both is a recipe for disaster because the processes are different.
Yep.
The training and education and the skills and competencies that people need to have are different.
Yep.
And you're never going to merge cultures.
Yep.
Right. You got to start with the people first, and then the technology becomes easier to do. But there's big decisions to be made, right? You don't need two of everything. You need one culture, one whatever ERP or EHR system, one set of processes for everything you do.
Right? Not a duplicate of everything.
Right.
Okay.
So the M&As have a high failure rate too.
Yeah.
Over 70%, going on 20 plus years failure rate, because there's less of a focus on people. There's more on financial metrics. And again, it's really a transformation. In my humble opinion, when you buy another company, or you merge with another company, that is an operational model change for both companies.
Yep. Of the three times. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Because you may decide that, hey, we're not doing it your way and we're not doing it our way. We're going to do it a completely different way.
The third way. Yep.
Right. Or you say, well, we're doing it our way because we bought you. Right. Either way, it's an operational model transformation for the people that are being acquired, or for everybody if you're doing a whole new model.
Yep.
Right.
So now that you've been through this, you've still got you've got years and years of decades of experience, and many more to come. What would you say now would be the had you known now what you knew or back then what you know now, what would you have done differently?
I'd become a jazz musician.
No. No.
I
Really?
play the piano, man. Yeah. You know, I if I had to go back to when you said, how did you start out?
Yeah.
It would have been great if the body of knowledge was there,
Existed.
and you could kind of say, these are all the things I need to know.
Yep.
And, here's sort of all the training and education, and take it in this sequence, and then go out and start doing it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And get good at doing it, and learn that every situation's different, right? Of the what type of transformation is it? Are all 10 of the elements for integrating the enterprise out of sync or out of alignment, or just 3 of them, or whatever? Knowing all that 20, 30 years ago would catapult anybody, I think, to a place where companies, it would become second nature to them, right? Where everybody could have that same level of education and understanding and the skill set to do this.
Yep.
And make things easier, right?
Yeah. Okay. So if we go back in time, then it would have been ideal that you had the CBOC, excuse me, on hand, and then gone in there and delivered quicker, faster. Maybe engaged, got everyone.
I got somebody at my door. Can you pause?
Yeah, sure. Have you, yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yep. Oh, you're still on mute, I think. Is it? Wait, it's still on mute. Are you on mute? It's taking a while to. Okay, there it is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. That was the post office. They've been here 3 times, and I owed them money. So.
So you got to pay the postman.
I had to take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't pay the postman, forget it. No more mail for you. All right. So Tony, the last question I had from you is, or I have for you is that you've talked a lot about people, which I'm a big fan of. These transformations are marketed or pitched as digital transformations, but really, I think, as you said at the top of the hour, was about, if you're just changing technology, you're really just doing continuous improvement. And sometimes, if you are not careful, you might just be faster at putting, rubbish in, rubbish out.
Right.
So I think what you were saying in some part there with culture and people is that like the cliche says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Is this true?
Yeah, I do agree with that. But you need both.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You do.
Culture without strategy is like taking a vacation without a map.
Yeah.
So, but you need to have a strong culture because that's literally the infrastructure for execution of your strategy, right? You don't have a strong culture, especially one that's biased towards alignment and execution, you're going to have a problem, and any strategy you have won't work because your culture can't execute it.
Yeah,
I think that's a big reason why a lot of M&As fail, because they don't focus on culture at all.
Yeah.
They don't focus on people, and people. Again, Patty McCord's book. People engage in behaviors, and what drives behaviors? Well, the values of the company drive your behaviors, and your behaviors drive your performance. And that's what really is the foundation for culture. And so if you don't have strong values that everybody buys into, and incentives to get the right behaviors, then you're not going to get a strong culture, and you're not going to be able to execute, right?
Yep.
I mean, look at the company, the shoe company, the online shoe company. Amazon bought them.
Oh, okay.
Right? I can't remember the name of the company, but they were all about culture. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. I think it was a young guy, not a young guy, but he sold the company not long after. With millions.
Yeah. Oh, he sold it for like $1 billion. And Amazon bought it, right? And I can't think of the name of the company.
Yeah, he was accredited for the culture. Actually. Right. Yeah, I think he was Asian, Chinese, something.
Yeah, he was an Asian guy and built this really, really super strong culture. They executed flawlessly.
Yeah.
Obviously, became hugely successful selling shoes online, and then Amazon bought him, right? So culture is important. But he had a strategy too, right? He wanted to sell shoes online. He had a purpose. There was values associated with building this culture, and they were able to execute flawlessly to the point where they became a highly valuable company that Amazon was willing to pay over $1 billion for.
Right? From culture. Okay, so the takeaway for as you've dropped a lot of gems there, Tony. Like, and I think everyone needs to go. We'll put the show notes in the bottom of the podcast of all the references you've dropped, and the books that we need to go read, and the Netflix we've got to get on the YouTube, and particularly Payday O'Cord, the Chief People Officer for Netflix. So the I think a good takeaway for as well as the approach that you've got, the 10 elements you need to consider, the 3 different types of transformation, and having that conversation from the strategic operations and execution level. But the key part, I think, of what you're saying is, like with everything, is you can't underestimate in these big transformation programs the people element.
That would be sort of the major take home from today is it's always people first, then process, then technology. And I know that sounds cliche, but if you learn by doing and you've done it enough and you've been successful, it's intuitive.
Yes. Yeah. For a veteran like you, it is. So for all of us other mere mortals, then we need to learn. And so, okay, so we'll put in the show notes how we can go, and if you could share that presentation with me, that I could share with the viewers.
Yeah, the slide deck I sent you, the PDF. Yeah, go ahead and post it.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much, Tony. I will share that with everyone. And also your contact details if people want to get in touch with you, how they can find out more about the ABMP CBOK, the Common Book of Knowledge for Business Process Management. They know how to get in touch with you. And the growing practice there. So, Tony, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for your time. and their insights has been invaluable. I wish I had known what you know after my time, which is only half the time, if not even that, of your experience. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you, Heath. Pleasure doing your podcast, and anytime, any topic, if you want to do it again for something else.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we could talk for hours, actually. Yeah, I will be in touch for the next topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap it up there. Tony Benedict, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All the way from Arizona. Okay. Thank you. Okay, all the best.